And I think we have a few minutes for questions for the entire group. I'm going to leave this up here because I think it's a nice demonstration of the program.
RI discovery and power to change. Right. Yes, there's a designated leader trained, and that person meets all regularly with people.
Yes.
Is there a plan to look at the use of this model with the diverse populations that we're starting to work with, the youth and diverse populations?
In terms of an evaluation, yes. Yes, I actually submitted a grant to NIMH to look at that with some more diverse youth on the southwest side of Chicago, Beacon Therapeutic, to look at power to change. Yes, that is.
So if you take a look at RI dropouts,
just very briefly. And again, we're seeing that they still have, the fact that they still have some improvements over time, again, is why I had the comment up there about even some brief exposure seems, I know there's all kinds of other factors that we can't control for in this evaluation, but it does, to me at least, say that some brief exposure may be helping them improve some of those outcomes. Yes?
What percentage of people that are in RI are also doing individual therapy injunction?
I looked at that, tried to look at that. I don't think, are we asking that?
We don't ask it. The only time that we, some people, we don't ask specifically for an individual therapy. A lot of people will offer that up as, are you receiving any other services that I haven't asked you about? So some people, I will make note of it when they tell me at that point, but it's not.
And we get a variety of comments, actually, I think throughout the interview, and Dana and Patricia can speak to that better than I can because they do the bulk of the interviews. But we do ask people if they use mental health services, if they need case management, if they've in the past month. So we do have a little bit of those data. Yes?
Can you say something about what stimulated the expansion that I think you said started about 10 years ago in the programs?
Well, someone who was in the recovery organization, Treasure Rice, said to my sister and me, your father was doing a lot of other things that now have fallen by the wayside. Maybe we need to start another organization to deal with those things. And one was, he used to have lectures for the families of his patients so that they would understand the illness more. And so we then started the Abraham Lowe Institute. And our original plan was to set up groups for the families of patients. And we did that for a while, and then somebody came to us who dealt with people coming out of prison, and he said, I heard about your program, and I think we could use this program tremendously for people coming out of prison. And that's when we started working with the SAFER Foundation and their youth empowerment group, which were young people 16 to 21, I believe it was, who were either on probation or parole. And that's how we started the Power to Change program, which was a very simplified version because they couldn't understand the readings and our father wrote at I think it was the senior and high school level or something like that, and most people now read at 5th grade level, whatever it was. So anyway, we simplified things, and that's how that started. There also, in the history of the organization, was a period of stagnation. And I think it's what many organizations go through. But since it was run by average patients getting well, it was difficult to turn that around. And I must say, first with Kathy Garcia, she really began, and of course the fact that she was hired, a younger activist person was hired, meant that the organization wanted to change. And Kathy, this is the person who, as you said, lost her battle with cancer. She began the process, and Nancy Karstad has continued it. And Nancy has been very, may I say, aggressive in moving things forward and expanding the possibilities. So there was a change of mentality and a desire to re-expand.
Dennis.
Could you talk about how RI discovery differs from RI?
It's, you know, there's certain, I don't know, we didn't talk much about the readings and that type of thing. Of the regular RI groups read from Dr. Lowe's book, Mental Health Through Will Training. RI Discovery has a new book called The Wisdoms of Dr. Lowe, which was just put together. And it's sort of smaller excerpts kind of thing. It's one of the things we often heard about recovery was that people didn't feel sometimes that they were very welcome. So this is a much more an effort to, you know, engage people right from the very beginning. There was a time when people would come to RI and they couldn't speak for what, 6 months or something like that. And this is really a way to engage people intentionally very early in the very first meeting they attend. Most RI meetings are 2 hours, including mutual aid. This is more like an hour, hour and 15 minutes, so it's shorter. There's a workbook that really goes into a lot of the concepts and tools in greater depth, and it's something that people can take home with them. And so those are some of the differences.
1 minute left. Any other questions? Yes.
How is this funded? Is it self-pay, or do you accept insurance, or like if someone wanted to go on the program?
For many years, the organization was self-funded through voluntary contributions, very similar to AA. But as Marilyn said, the organization went through a period of, you know, where attendance declined, and the voluntary contributions were no longer sufficient really to totally fund the organization. So now we are funded still largely from individual contributions, be they free will offering or individual donations to the organizations. One thing that I think speaks very much to the point of the impact that this organization has on people's lives are the number of bequests that we receive. People will say, this organization saved my life, and I want to make sure that it's around for future generations. And so, you know, there's a lot of individual support. We, in recent years, because I mentioned the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, we've begun to seek foundation support. For the first time this year, we've applied for a SAMHSA grant, which would be huge if we actually were able to achieve that.
Nancy, can you just maybe say very quickly to end, if someone wanted to refer a patient, we have lots of residents in the room, how they could best go about doing that here in the Chicago area?
Yeah, Chris, what's the best way for people to refer here in the Chicago area?
There are packets of information on your way out. We've got a folder of information put together for everybody. But the best way is actually to go to the website, and you can do a meeting search there. You can find the meetings that are here in the Chicago area. But as you've heard, we also have telephone groups and online groups. A lot of times it's good to send somebody to a telephone group first, because it's a way for them to get an idea of how things work, and there's not really the being face to face with other people, which is a lot of times a concern. So we find that people a lot of people start with the telephone groups, and then we'll go into a community group. But everything is right there on the website itself.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you very much.